Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this wonderful Friday afternoon. And surprisingly, we have some NBA news to cover in this offseason. I know the offseason literally just started, and I'm honestly very surprised that we already have moves coming in from teams and moves coming in from players this early in the game. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about is the trade between Alex Caruso and Josh Giddey. You know, the Chicago Bulls and the Thunder. They recently engaged in trade talks, and they just finally finalized a trade just to swap those two players. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and why. Then, in the next segment, we are going to talk about JJ Redick and his contract with the Lakers. Now, I said he was in a previous podcast that he was definitely going to be the Lakers' next coach. And, I ended up being right. The sources ended up being valid. And it turns out, the sources actually, leaked that information a bit earlier than they should have because there was no official contract signed by JJ and the Lakers. So we're just going to talk a little bit about that. And now, since we finally have a contract that he signed. Then, in the third segment, we are going to talk about Malik Monk. He recently re-signed with the Kings. I put him as one of the top players in the free agency market in a previous podcast, and now he's gone. Now he's, not really gone, but now he just, left free agency, and now he's on the Kings again. And then in the fourth segment, we are going to talk about Klay Thompson and his market in free agency, given the Malik Monk deal with the Kings. So we also have a special fifth segment that I reveal at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. Once again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. Really makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. And with that out of the way, let's go right ahead into the first bit of news with, the in the NBA right now, which is the most recent trade between the Chicago Bulls and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was not expecting this trade to happen coming in from the Bulls, because I really, I felt that the Bulls really found value in Alex Caruso, and they really liked him on the squad. He was providing enough for them both on the offense and the defensive side of the ball. I did not expect the team to trade a player that is incredibly valuable, and on top of that, I didn't expect them to, in return, get a player that might not actually be that valuable. Now, you guys know that I'm not a big fan about talking about Giddey. I don't like him. I don't like what he allegedly does. I don't like the things that he's gotten in trouble for. I don't like it at all. And I'm not going to touch on it because, I just don't want to touch on it. Funny joke right there. But aside from that, all the stuff, off court, I guess it makes sense, why the Thunder wanted to trade him away, because, all that off court stuff, it was a little bit of a distraction, and I wouldn't be surprised if, it caused some chemistry issues in the locker room, because let's face it, when an accusation like his just comes out of the blue, and there's pictures that sort of, that taint a bad look on one of your teammates, you're going to feel some kind of way. And after that incident, Chet Holmgren unfollowed Josh Giddey on Instagram. So it's clear that, he doesn't want to really be associated with Giddey and his things off the court, whatever it might be. And, it's a little bit weird. I'm not going to, for those of you guys that know what Josh allegedly did, then you guys know exactly why it's weird and why I just don't want to talk about it right now, and why Chet Holmgren was being a little bit distant in that time towards Giddey. And it makes sense how, the rest of the locker room and the rest of the the rest of the players probably wouldn't feel, or they probably would agree with Chet, and they'd feel the same way about Giddey. So this trade, I see this as a great move from the Thunder. This is an A-plus trade coming in from the Thunder. The fact that they were able to get rid of someone who was going to be a problem in the locker room, and they replaced him with someone who, in my opinion, is so much better and can fill the roles that you need so much better. Because while Giddey is, mediocre at doing everything, because, he's pretty good at scoring, he's pretty good at rebounding, he's pretty good at passing, and that's really, he's a triple-double, he could be a walking triple-double, but he just wasn't. And then in the postseason, he was even worse. He was arguably the biggest reason why the Thunder didn't make it farther in the postseason. His lack of defense, and he had one of the worst box plus minuses compared to anyone in the series. It was horrible. His performance was horrible, and after that performance, it almost demanded him that he be traded. Honestly, it's that's really it's a good move from the Thunder. Now, from the Bulls, on the other hand, that's completely different. I don't understand why the Bulls would actually, engage in this trade. I didn't expect them to want to give up a player that valuable and that, because he's Alex Caruso, while he isn't the same offensive talent, he's a great defender. And defense and his play style, a lot of teams find that incredibly valuable, being a 3-and-D player. And I feel like that is a great mix for the Thunder, having a 3-and-D guard to pair along with Shai and help him on sort of the defensive side of the ball, because Shai, he plays pretty good defense with the steals and things of that nature. Pairing him up with Shai is going to be really cool. And let me just see. So, and on the Bulls' perspective, I mean, acquiring a player like him, like Giddey, I could see it as a little bit of a benefactor as well, because he can do a lot more with the ball than Alex Caruso, I'm sure. Given his heights and given his abilities on the court, he could be a pretty good scoring option. However, I'm not sure how his off-court antics are going to mesh well with the locker room. I also have no idea how his chemistry is going to be with the Bulls and the locker room with that. I'm not entirely sure if the Bulls have the intention of sort of blowing this entire roster up as well, because they've recently been engaged in different trade talks. They've been listening to several trades, for Zach LaVine. And it seems like, not to mention DeMar DeRozan's going to be a free agent, it seems as if they're trying to put themselves in a rebuilding situation, because now they're looking at trades for Zach LaVine, and there's also the possibility of DeMar and free agency. And given how this sort of era with DeMar and Zach LaVine hasn't worked, maybe they try to blow up the roster. And honestly, the Bulls, they've been trying to trade Zach LaVine for a while. So maybe this is finally the year where they get to finally do that. But this is let me know in the comments what you guys think of this trade. I'm just looking at an article right here, and in Chicago, Giddey's fate might be tied with the rest of the roster. If DeMar and Zach come back, his weakness as a shooter will likely continue to hold Josh Giddey back. He's best suited as a full-time point guard, and those on-ball reps won't be available if DeRozan and LaVine are still there. And not on top of that, Kobe White being the point guard also doesn't help your situation, especially because Josh Giddey is much better with being a much more ball-dominant player. And why did they engage in this trade? Well, one of the biggest reasons why this trade was even engaged in the first place was because the Thunder were looking to move Josh Giddey over to the bench, and Josh Giddey wasn't happy with that. So he decided that he would rather get traded than come off the bench, which is a little bit, I think that's a pretty lame mentality because, like, if your team makes it to the playoffs and you're in a very good position to win, I feel like you should stick with that team and just listen to whichever role they assign you to and see how far it could take you. Then that's when you start to trade. Or that's when you engage in a trade. I mean, they were the number one seed in the Western Conference, and their lack of experience and Josh Giddey's lack of play costed them the series between against the Dallas Mavericks. So I don't know, like maybe they could have probably gone a little bit farther if they maintained the or if they made the adjustments that they needed. But I mean, getting Alex Caruso is still a really good it's still a really good deal, and you get a player that can play defense, and then you get a player that can score the ball rather efficiently. You don't really need another playmaker like Giddey on your team when you have Jalen Williams and you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I really think this is a good trade for the Thunder, but I don't think this is a good trade for the Bulls. I'm just not a big fan of the player that they got. That's really like and not to mention the fact that Caruso, he's one of the best defensive perimeter guards that the league has. He didn't win an all NBA defensive team selection this year, but he's really good at defense, and it shouldn't be slept on. So that's all that I have for you in this first segment. So now we will go ahead and move on to the second segment, where I talk about JJ Redick and his official contract with the Lakers, because it's finally revealed how much he's getting paid and for how many years. So I will be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to talk about JJ Redick and his official contract details. But before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead and use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is GSMCpodcast.net. It's the same link. It really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is GSMCpodcast.net. And with that out of the way, let's go right ahead and talk about JJ Redick and his official contract with the Los Angeles Lakers to become their new head coach. Now, a lot more people are a bit upset with this deal than they were in the beginning of the season, which is a little bit hypocritical. Well, not the beginning of the season, but the beginning when these rumors started, which is a little bit hypocritical because when JJ Redick was on the podcast with LeBron talking about basketball, everyone was saying that JJ really knew his stuff. Now they're saying that he's not going to be a good coach because of his inexperience. So I don't really know what side the media is on here. I don't know who they're like who they want to win, who they expect, well, not who they want to win, but who they, I, I don't understand. Like, I genuinely don't. Like, because on one end, everyone's saying it's a good move, then on the other end, everyone's saying it's a bad move. And it's like, in the beginning, everyone was saying it's good, now everyone's saying that it's bad. So it's very, like, it's bipolar almost. Like, it just flip-flops between good, bad. This happens all the time with the Lakers offseason, and I can't stand it. And I mean, the details of the contract. Let's go over the details before we get into anything else. So I mentioned that in the previous podcast he was hired, but that information was actually leaked out a little bit earlier than it needed to be, and it was on accident. But finally they negotiated a deal, and it's a 4-year deal, which will be around $8 million per year. So his while the exact structure of the deal is unknown, an $8 million salary would make JJ Redick one of the 10 highest paid coaches in the NBA. Head coach contracts aren't really made public, but Popovich and Kerr, they're believed to each make around $16 to $17 million per year, which is a lot of money for a coach. Now, expecting that, giving JJ Redick a top 10 paid position, despite the fact that he's inexperienced, it seems a little bit out there, and it seems a little bit crazy because there are other head coaches on the market that are experienced and they could have interviewed, but they decided to opt with the one that has zero coaching experience. This could really backfire on them. But it could also, or it could end up being really good. Like, we have no idea how he's going to be as a coach. And I thought that Steve Nash was going to be a pretty good coach because he was a really good point guard. And that ultimately ended up being untrue. So, with that, let's go ahead and continue reading this article. Eric Spoelstra is next on the list, but behind Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich, with the $15 million per year that he gets from Miami. Monty Williams, who was fired this week only after one season into the Detroit Pistons after signing his massive contract, he made an estimated $13 million last season. Nick Nurse, Doc Rivers, Michael Malone, and Rick Carlisle all make in the neighborhood of $8 million per year. So he's going to be making around the same money as Doc, Michael Malone, Nick Nurse. Now, as much as I don't like Doc Rivers as a coach, one of the things that he has on his resume is a championship ring. He also has several other bad things, like several 3-1 losses, several 3-1 leads blown in the postseason, several 3-2 leads blown in the postseason, several 2-0 leads blown in the postseason. He has it all. But he does still have that championship. And, should a championship that's from 2008 be worth $8 million per year? Maybe not. Maybe not. I'll have to rethink that a little bit. But the Lakers, they may not have offered Redick anything close to what they're willing to pay Dan Hurley, but Redick has no previous coaching experience and honestly should be pleased with the deal given the circumstances of the Lakers. Now, there was also a rumor going about saying that, one of the members of the coaching staff that JJ Redick is planning on bringing along is Rondo, which is honestly a little bit surprising because, again, that's another person that doesn't have any coaching experience and you're getting him on the staff. You need a really good staff. I understand that, but get some more people with experience. Surround yourself with the people that have the experience of being in the front office or not being in the front office, but being in the head coaching slot. And then you'll be able to learn from that and be able to ultimately get a little bit better at your job. That's just my opinion. That's what I would do. I would surround myself with all the experience that I could possibly have. Now, one of the things that I'm expecting going into this offseason, I'm expecting this league to do a tampering investigation. Now, you might not understand why, but it's like the podcast that LeBron and JJ Redick started. I feel like, in my opinion, that is the biggest lead to a tampering. Just think about it. I mean, LeBron on a podcast with JJ Redick, head coaching spot is vacant, and they're talking about basketball. Everyone was saying that this is an interview from LeBron to being that JJ might end up being the new head coach. Now, they were also saying that LeBron didn't talk about him being the head coach at all on the podcast or off the podcast, but do we really know that? I know I'm just, spitballing here, but this is just my theory. I genuinely think that there might be a tampering, there might be some kind of tampering. There might. This is just this is just a thought, because I remember in the NFL, there was also an instance of tampering between the Dolphins and Tom Brady. The Dolphins were negotiating, with Tom Brady to see if there was a way to get him on the Miami Dolphins as opposed to staying in Tampa. But then the NFL it found out, and they figured them out for tampering, and as punishment, the NFL took away Miami's draft pick. So they just didn't have a pick in the first round of the NFL draft, which is, it sounds bad, but I mean, they are still in a relatively good position in the NBA. I'm not in the NBA, but in the NFL. So you take the good from the bad. The fact that they could have had another player is, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, they still have a really good team, and they still had a pretty good season in the NFL. So the fact that happened, it just has me a little bit concerned over this little instance right here, and how there could possibly be some kind of tampering involved, because I feel like this is just too good of a coincidence for, LeBron just starts a podcast with someone, and then immediately that person becomes the new coach for his own team. It sounds fishy. Like, when you put it that way, it sounds incredibly fishy. So that might be something that the NBA is going to investigate in the future. Now, I'm not saying that there was any kind of tampering. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just giving a prediction of what could possibly happen, and I'm not saying that it is even going to happen. It's just a thought and a worry in my mind, because if they get found out for tampering, this could probably hurt the Lakers a little bit more than it would help the Lakers, and it's not ideal to put yourself and to dig a deeper hole before the season even starts, which is essentially like what which is essentially what the media thinks that they're doing by acquiring JJ Redick in this contract. But we'll just have to see how this goes. Maybe because it's LeBron, there won't even be an investigation about that. Maybe they'll just let it slide. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe there even isn't anything and I'm just talking nonsense. But that's just a theory that I have. Because, again, I do not know. No one was in the room when it happened. And nobody has that kind of insider information between what LeBron and what JJ does. Nobody. So, that with that being said, let me know in the comments what you guys think of this move. Do you guys think it was a good move? Do you think it was a bad move getting JJ? Or would you rather them look for a new, more experienced head coach as opposed to him? But that is all I have for you on the second segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the third segment, where we talk about Malik Monk re-signing with the Sacramento Kings. So I will be right back after the short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Hold on. My bad. I was just looking at my phone because I got an ESPN notification saying that Nico Harrison is going to stay on the Mavs roster and that the Mavs intend to improve going into the next season. So we'll see how they improve, but that's not what we're going to be talking about in this segment. So in this third segment, we are going to be talking about Malik Monk and how he re-signed with Sacramento on a new contract that he has with them. I think this is great for him. This is great for the Kings. Great move immediately, re-signing him to a whole lot of money, and he's definitely well worth the money. So I'll just go ahead and read the entirety of this article real quick. So according to NBA Insider, the Kings and Malik Monk have agreed to a 4-year, $78 million deal that includes a player option, as the Kings were able to keep him without having him test the market. Now, this is the best case scenario for the franchise, as the agreed upon contract is the max they could offer Monk. Like, that is the most money they could have offered Malik Monk. Meanwhile, teams could have offered him way more money than that. Now, coming off a career season where he averaged 15 points and 5 assists per game, the raise was definitely, it's well earned. And, he didn't win Sixth Man of the Year, unfortunately, even though I think he deserved it. He ended up proving that he is a very good option on the team, and he's definitely a piece of that, a very, very important piece that the Kings need in order to be successful. And while they didn't really have that much success this season, they've had a lot of success, in other seasons, and this season just wasn't their year. But after losing to after losing to Golden State in the playoffs before, and they did end up beating them, in the play-in when Klay Thompson went 0 for 10. But aside from that, there was really this was sort of a weird year for them, because it's they lost their high seeding literally at the very last second because of how close the Western Conference really was. Now, this move right here is the best case scenario for the franchise, as, they didn't have to worry about him testing the market. And this new rule that the NBA, recently issued is insane. Because I believe, I'm not entirely sure about this, but I know there is a new rule in the NBA, and it seems like this new rule allows teams to be able to engage in contract negotiations way before other teams can engage those players in contract negotiations. So it's they're allowing the teams, for example, they're allowing the Kings to be able to communicate earlier than intended with one of their players about contract negotiations, and therefore, preventing them from being able to test the market. It's a new rule that the NBA introduced, and once the NBA's moratorium ends on July 6th, Malik Monk intends to sign the contract. So there's a period of time where teams aren't allowed to do anything with their players, And, when the free agency market opens, which is on July 6th, that's when the teams, they're allowed to make their contract signings and things of that nature. But with this new rule, now the teams can it seems like these guys can discuss the deals of the contract before they want to sign it. And they can make public that they intend to sign that contract before, other teams can even, make a counter offer. So it's very interesting. And the deal was worked out by Representatives Jeff Schwartz and Marcus Monk of XL Sports, with Sacramento Kings general manager Monte McNair and assistant GM Wes Wilcox. Knowing that Monk is coming back will certainly make things easier for the front office this offseason. That is one less hole they will need to fill in the roster as the Kings look to get back into the playoff picture. Despite winning only 2 fewer games in the last season than they did in 2023, the team missed the playoffs. And after finishing in 3rd place last season, they finished 9th in this season, resulting in a loss to the Pelicans on the road in the second play-in tournament game. Now, a big reason that the Kings were unable to get back into the postseason and win the play-in games was because of the absence of Malik Monk. He suffered a knee injury, leading to his final game in the season being on March 29th. So, despite the fact that the Pelicans didn't have Zion, the Kings also didn't have a very important piece to their offense, and they desperately needed that important piece. Otherwise, they just weren't going to win. So I definitely feel like this is a great contract for the Kings, and it also sets a little bit of a precedent. It shows a little bit of a precedent for what other players are valued at. So right here, it seems like Monk is valued as a 6-man, despite his production. He's going to make $78 million for 4 years. So now that's really going to be interesting. How many, what other offers the players are going to get, and how the market is going to shift, how people are going to view the value of their players. It's going to be very, very interesting, and there's endless possibilities with this move, and I'm going to actually be talking a little bit more about that in the next segment when I talk about Klay Thompson and his little the possibilities of his free agency market and things of that nature. But let me know what you guys think in the comments of this move with Malik Monk and the Kings. I mean, do you think he should have probably looked to chase more money? Or do you think he should have gone to a completely different team? Would you guys have liked him to be on a different team, or do you think this is the right fit for the Kings, just to ultimately get him and keep him and keep him under $100 million, which is it seems like a lot to give Malik $100 million, obviously, but the fact that they didn't allow him to test the free agency market, because I wouldn't be surprised if there would be other teams that would have been trying to outbid the Kings in getting Malik Monk. Now, we have Bernard Archer in the chat. He believes that this is the right fit for the team. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I'm not a big Kings fan. I don't really follow the Kings like that. I'm going to be completely honest with you. But I do like Malik Monk, and I do understand the value that he brings as a 6-man. While he does come off the bench, he's definitely good enough to be a starter. But I definitely feel like his role is, just better coming off the bench. Like a Lou Williams kind of player. Everyone remembers how Lou Will, he was the 6-man with the Clippers for a little bit. And, he would get more minutes than the starting point guard on the team, but, he would come off the bench just because, come off the bench. And why not? He was so good at, coming off the bench. It just made sense for him to continue to do it. It was working. So I think he should just stay on the bench. I don't think he should be a starter. And, the fact that you think, oh, my God, a guy coming off the bench making $78 million, that is a lot of money. Oh, my Lord. what is the matter with this team? No, that's actually a very, very good price for someone as good as Malik Monk. And it's a big deal that he signed before even testing free agency, because other teams, like I said before, other teams might have outbidded him, and they could have offered him even $100 million by other teams. And it's like someone would have gone higher than the Sacramento. This is like a really big steal for Sacramento. Orlando could have been an option for landing Malik Monk, as I said before. And let me just go ahead and look at the contract breakdown. So he'll make $17 million in his first year, $18 million in his next year, $20 million in the year after that, and then $21 million in his final year, which is the player option. So he was a runner-up to six-man, so I think this is good money for him, and this is a pretty good steal coming in from the Kings, because I wouldn't be surprised if there would have been other bidders trying to get him for more money. It's been really, a meteoric rise for Malik Monk. And, over the last 2 years on Sacramento, after he was only able to command the veteran minimum from the Lakers in the summer in 2021, he played well for the Lakers and has broken out with the Kings. So just another player that just gets better after leaving LeBron. So, yeah. Last season, Monk led all bench players in total points and assists and was one of the only two players in the past 25 years to have 1,000 points and 300 assists as a player coming off the bench, according to ESPN stats, which, again, it makes it even more baffling that he wasn't selected for six-man. But that is all I have for this third segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the fourth segment, where I talk about Klay Thompson and the possibilities he has in the free agency market, given this, contract with the given this recent contract between Malik Monk and the Kings. So I'll be right back explaining how that correlates after the short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to be talking a little bit about Klay Thompson and his free agency market, given this recent move by the Kings in acquiring Malik Monk on a very, very, cost-efficient deal, which is honestly a little bit cheaper than what Malik Monk could have been making if he decided to go to another team, but I digress. So, looking at Klay Thompson and the Golden State Warriors and their situation, obviously one of the key parts of Golden State Warriors and their successes have been from Klay Thompson, being, the second splash brother and being a player that is very good at hitting three-pointers except in an elimination game. Everyone's going to be making that joke in the offseason. But aside from that, he's a really good shooter and he's a phenomenal player. He's not the same defender that he was previously, but what does that matter when you can shoot the ball like it's nothing? And that's what Klay Thompson does, and that's the value that he brings to the team. That's the value that he brings to the Warriors, and all of their championships have been won with him. He's definitely a very, very important piece to the team. And the Warriors, they're expected to make several moves, but I don't think any move that they could make is more important than their decision on whether they should keep Klay Thompson or whether they should just let him walk. Now, the Warrior, he'll become a free agent on June 30th. However, the new rule that I talked about, I just figured it out. It's a CBA, and it allows teams to negotiate with their own free agents immediately after the NBA Finals, giving it gives the team that owns that player currently, not really owns them, but the team that has them under contract, a little bit of a head start than compared to all of the other teams in the that could be interested in getting him onto the roster. And this also would give the Warriors a head start to potentially re-sign Thompson before letting him explore the open market. Now, the free agency market for Thompson is bound to be interesting because I wouldn't be surprised if there's so many other teams that would be interested in him, like Orlando, the Sixers. Like, those teams are reportedly interested in Klay Thompson, and it's easy to see why. Despite not being the same player that he was, he still put up an impressive season. Now, it's not the same kind of season that we're used to him having, but it's still an impressive season. He averaged 17.9 points, shooting 55% from the field and 38% from 3 on 9 attempts per game. Now, to put it in perspective, which I talked about the Kings deal before, he recently agreed to a 4-year deal with $78 million, averaging 15 points and shooting 52% from the field and 35% from 3. So they offered Monk $78 million, and he was averaging way less efficiency, way less points. Well, not really way less points. He was averaging less points, was less efficient from both the field and less efficient from 3. So, and that's the value that Malik Monk brings to the team, being able to shoot the ball. Same thing with Klay Thompson. So, if that is a similar contract with less years could be a suitable deal for Klay Thompson and the Warriors, since their numbers Klay Thompson's numbers, like, his points and his efficiency, they're better than Malik, but it's marginal. It's like it's really close. It's really close. It's not like a huge, like a 5-point difference or a 10-point difference. It's not like a in terms of efficiency, it's not like a 6% difference. It's not it's a 3% difference, and the difference in points, it's a 2-point difference. So it seems similar. Like the players, they seem to bring the same amount of value when you look at the averages. And the fact that Klay gets more minutes than Malik also might play into the fact that his numbers are just better than him. So it only takes one team to offer a massive deal to shift the entire landscape of NBA's free agency. And as the offseason progresses, all eyes are going to be on Golden State's Klay Thompson as he contemplates the next chapter of his career. And, this deal with Monk, it might, depending on how much more a team is willing to pay for Klay Thompson, it could change everything in the market. Because if the Warriors are willing to go into a bid war with another team, and another team opts to give him way more than $100 million for his contract, depending on the years, of course, then this could be seen as something that's like, it could either change the market of free agency, or the market could stay the same, and the team that ultimately ended up overpaying for him are going to suffer the consequences of that. Because that's the big problem with this Malik Monk deal. We have no idea, exactly how the market is going to shift now with this new deal and this new thing. And it's a little bit odd. Like, there's no real way to predict what could happen, because either one of those two possibilities is likely to happen. And it's all going to be dependent on how Klay Thompson plays at the end, but, predetermining it makes it a little bit more difficult. But I genuinely don't think the market is going to change that much if a team offers Klay Thompson way, way more. But then again, these players, and, they're going to feel incredibly, after a player makes a huge contract deal, a lot of them are going to use that to their advantage to see if they can get more money from an organization. Because I'll give you an example. So Klay Thompson, let's say he gets $111 million from the 76ers for however many years. I have no idea how many years it'll be. Just a hypothetical. And everyone sees that. Obviously, everybody is going to see that move. His averages and his efficiency, while they are pretty good, they aren't the same as they are, like, he's not worth that kind of money now, if that makes sense. And all that kind of money, 11 million or more, I don't think he should be making that kind of money. That's just my opinion on Klay Thompson, especially after this deal with Malik Monk. I honestly feel like, they should be making around the same amount of money, Malik Monk and Klay Thompson. I genuinely think that, and I feel like if you structure the contract like, the same way as Malik's, but, maybe give him like 80 or 81, 82 million as opposed to 78 million, I think that's a pretty decent contract, because you'd be paying him the same as Monk, except you'd be paying him a little bit more because of what he's done for you as a player for your franchise. And I feel like he deserves the extra dollars for what he's accomplished throughout his career. He's earned that. But if he goes overboard, then other players might use that to their advantage. Be like, oh, well, Klay Thompson signed with the Magic or signed with the 76ers for 111 million per year or something like that. So why would I be getting paid less than Klay Thompson when I've averaged this, when I've averaged that, when I've averaged that? So that's the scenario that could change the market, and a lot more players are, in this day and age in sports, are using that to their advantage. Like, loyalty is out the window. It's all about, money, money, money with this league. And with a lot of the players, that's how it works too. So they might use that to their advantage when negotiating contract deals and how much money they want to make, because they could use Klay Thompson's huge deal and be like, okay, well, I mean, I definitely feel like I deserve more money than Klay Thompson. If you don't want me, then I'll go ahead and find a team that's willing to pay me that amount of money. So that's how it could change the free agency market, and those are the types of scenarios where, it could potentially happen. Now, let's talk a little bit about the teams that are interested in him. The 76ers and the Orlando Magic. I think the Magic are a much better pick to play than the 76ers, in my opinion, because honestly, now that I think about it, either or could work. Because they'll have the shooting option that they need to help Joel Embiid. They'll have they'll have a solid team, and just like, again, maybe this could all backfire as Klay Thompson goes 0 for 10 again in an elimination game, matching Tobias Harris in points. But then again, it could also end up turning out really well. But I really think that he would be a better fit for the Orlando Magic, because that way he'll be able to sort of talk and mentor those young guys on the Magic and, teach them what it takes to be a championship contending team. So I really would rather see him on the Orlando Magic than I would rather see him on a team like the 76ers. And speaking of the 76ers, that is going to be what the next segment is going to be all about. And it's going to be all about how the 76ers, for some reason, aren't interested in Paul George or Zach LaVine. So I'm going to talk about that in the final segment, because I genuinely think this is very surprising, because how are you not interested in either of those players? So I'll explain a little bit about that after this short break. And we are back with the fifth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, we are going to talk a little bit about Paul George and the free agency and, how the Sixers, well, specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about the Sixers and their opinions on free agency with Paul George. I don't agree with it whatsoever. I actually cannot believe that this is the approach that the Sixers are, taking when going into the free agency market. But this is going to be about Paul George, and it's also going to be about Zach LaVine. Now, according to this report, the 76ers are not targeting Paul George in free agency. And I have to ask, why? Can anyone in the comments answer that question for me? Why are you not trying to acquire somebody as good as Paul George? Even though you have the cap space, you have you have a good enough team to be able to compete. Why are you not trying to acquire somebody like Paul George? Especially after this recent postseason where you got completely destroyed by the New York Knicks, and not to mention Tobias Harris got completely destroyed by the Sixers media, scoring 0 points in an elimination game. I don't know what it is about Philly, but it's like, every single time, there's always going to be that one player that just sells the game when the series or the game is in the balance. Ben Simmons did that in 1 year. Then after that, James Harden did that 2 times in a row. Then we have Tobias Harris, who scored 0 points in an elimination game. And I have to ask, why are you not trying to pursue Paul George in this free agency and just let Tobias Harris walk? Why? I'm so confused. The Sixers, according to this report, they've been connected to Paul George for some time now. However, Shams recently reported that the 76ers' interest in George has significantly waned. Whatever that means, which I'm assuming it means they're less interested. This is surprising, as George is a star player and would be a great fit for the 76ers, which is what the article is saying and which is what I'm saying. He is such a better Tobias Harris than Tobias Harris. He can do everything on the basketball court. He can play defense. He can shoot. He can dribble. He can play make. He can do all of these things. Why don't you want to put this player on your team? I don't understand it. The only downside to Paul George are the injuries, which might backfire for them, honestly, now that I think about it, because, Joel Embiid gets injured a lot, and then Paul George, he gets injured sometimes in the postseason as well, so that might backfire for them. But aside from all that that chatter, having someone like Paul George who might get injured is so much better than having someone like Tobias Harris who might not get injured, but again, doesn't really do much when he's there. So I personally think that this is a huge missed opportunity for the Sixers, because it's like, why are you not engaging in trade talks with this guy? Or in signings with this guy, not trade talks. That's my bad. But he's been a member of the Clippers since the 2020 season, ever since, the Clippers gave up almost I dumb it all down and I say 16 draft picks, because the amount of picks that they gave up for Paul George is a lot. And the fact that they have 0 championship to show for it honestly makes this seem to be like one of the worst trades in recent NBA history. Now, the Clippers, they're yet to extend Paul George. He's still a free agent option. Despite having plenty of opportunity and already having Kawhi Leonard, it appears George might be leaving this offseason. Only a select few teams would be able to afford Paul George in this offseason, and the 76ers have been the main team that's been connected to him. But if they go elsewhere, Paul George could be left with a really terrible market. Now, the Sixers, they've been disappointed in the playoffs through the Joel Embiid era. The team has been searching for star teammates to play alongside him, but continues to fail. Ben Simmons, James Harden, Jimmy Butler it really seemed like that fit was going to be fantastic, but it's just like it was just 1 year. And they haven't found a good enough fit for Paul George. Maxey is a rising star, so, that's a good option. But the Sixers, they could have that. They could really use another piece to the offense and even the defense, because Paul George is a fantastic defender. And well, not really, fantastic, but, compared to the average NBA player, he is a very good defender and great defender, honestly. But, again, the Sixers, they could use that piece. 76ers, they have a lot of cap space, and Paul George would be a perfect fit for that. He could play the wing, provide elite scoring, and be a good defender. He can play on, off the ball. Sixers, I don't understand why the Sixers aren't interested in somebody like him. It doesn't make any sense. Can somebody in the comments please explain to me why they aren't pursuing Paul George? Give me one good reason why they don't want to pursue Paul George, please, because I can't think of one. Is there another free agent in the market that's better than Paul George? I didn't see any free agents that were better than Paul George. Other than LeBron, which is literally the only other player that I have over Paul George on my free agency list. You can go ahead and watch that video on the sports channel, on the podcast channel, whichever you want. But I don't know. I'm stunned at this. I'm genuinely stunned at how they just don't want to pursue Paul George. And please, somebody let me know in the comments what you guys think of this move, because I think this is horrible. I think this is bad for the Sixers, because this does not make sense. And another thing that also I just can't wrap my head around is that, okay, they're not interested in Paul George. Sure, that's fine. Why are they also not interested in Zach LaVine? There was a report going out. I'm just pulling it up right now. There was a recent report about how I talked about how the Bulls, they were engaged in trade talks between other teams and the potential trading of Zach LaVine. So that's the thing. That makes sense. The 76ers, they're not interested in trading for the Bulls' Zach LaVine for whatever reason, and I don't know why. Why don't they want to trade Tobias Harris or any of the other players that they have and just try to get Zach LaVine? The Bulls are very, very eager to trade Zach LaVine, and they've been eager to trade Zach LaVine. It seems like they're trying to blow up the roster. This would be a great time to get Zach LaVine, maybe even on a budget deal. Who knows? But the Bulls, they're really attempting to trade LaVine this offseason, and the problem is that they can't find someone that would take him at the trade deadline, which was the big problem, which has always been the problem, honestly, for the Bulls. Chicago, they just won. The Chicago Bulls, they've only had one playoff. They've only won one playoff game since getting Zach LaVine from Minnesota. My bad. I don't know why I stuttered so horribly, but LaVine, he only played 25 games this season. He underwent season-ending right foot surgery in February. So, again, the value is so much lower for Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, when he's healthy, is a fantastic player. He's a two-time All-Star. He averaged 19 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. He shot 45% from the field, 34% from beyond the three. This is the time to get somebody on a budget deal, because you could make the argument that you have no idea how good he is going to be post coming from injury, and you could use that to your advantage as a team. And he signed a 5-year, $215 million contract with the Bulls in 2022, and he'll make $43 million next season and $45 million next season, which is a little bit, it's a lot. It is a lot. I genuinely will say that's a lot of money. But it's still a better option for your team than just not getting Paul George. Why are you not interested in either? I don't understand. And I swear, if they go into this offseason and they don't make a single offseason move, I'm going to laugh so hard. It seems like I'm angry, but I'm honestly, I'm laughing on the inside, because this is just a hilarious this is a hilarious move from the Sixers, that just not caring about Paul George. Again, hilarious, because why wouldn't you care about Paul George? But the reason why it sounds like I'm this upset is because it's I don't get by things that don't make any sense to me, and this is one of the things That just doesn't make any sense to me. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Which player would be a better fit? Do you think Paul George would be a better fit? Do you think Zach LaVine would be a better fit for the Sixers? Or do you think none of them would be a good fit for the Sixers, like how the Sixers believe, and just not get any of them? I mean, imagine they get Klay Thompson. Of all the free agents that they would want to pursue, I mean, I could see it working. Yes, I can see it. But getting Klay Thompson over someone like Paul George, I think it's a huge missed opportunity. A huge missed opportunity. Because Paul George, like, he could do everything that Klay Thompson can do, but a lot better now. Like, that's genuinely the thought process that I have. Like, Paul George can do everything that Klay Thompson can do. It's just a lot better. He can be a playmaker. He's a dribbler. He's also a great shooter. And let me just go ahead and look at his percentages real quick. Yeah. He shot 40% from the three-point line this year, which is on 7 attempts, which is, close to which is close to Klay Thompson's 9 attempts. And again, he's shooting very, very efficiently he's not shooting that efficient from the field, but from the three is really the big difference maker here, in my opinion, because here you have, because Klay Thompson, he's known for his 3-point shooting. And here you have the option to acquire somebody who shoots better from the 3-point line than him, while also being a better option overall, just as an overall basketball player, because, that's just the player that Paul George is. So, but that's my opinions on it. Let me know exactly what you guys think of this move in the comments. Let me know if you agree with it. Let me know if you disagree with it. I genuinely do not like how they're not pursuing any of these guys or Paul George specifically in this free agent market. I just don't like it. Now, that is all I have for this show, and that's going to be the end of this podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And I also would like to remind you to please go ahead and use the link in the description to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. It's also displayed below the ticker on every single show segment, as you could see. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. That is all I have for you today on this show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.